My goal is to have the cabin completely dried in by December, so my family and I can enjoy Christmas there together. Although the exterior is just about complete, there's still plenty of work to do on the inside. Here we are, the interior of the cabin. I haven't taken you guys in here for a while, but this is what it looks like. Up top we have the loft, and that's going to be our main sleeping area. We've got some light coming in up there with the two dormers. Over here we have our family room. So this is where the wood stove is going to be placed between these nice big bright windows. We're going to make some furniture here to sit around the fireplace with. In the back corner, or the back of the cabin, you'll see we have our two tool benches, which we're going to have to move really soon once we start sanding. But I'm thinking about putting a kitchenette either in this corner or that corner. I'm just not sure yet about the exact layout of the cabin, but we're going to figure it out. And then on the other corner, we're going to have probably a sitting area. Now, one of the main things that I'm trying to figure out is whether or not to have a small washroom within the cabin. Now, most log cabins have their washroom on the outside as an outhouse, and that's nice because it leaves more space on the inside of the cabin. But the downside is, on a cold, dark winter's night, it's nice to be able to just go to the washroom where it's warm inside. So if we do build a washroom, I'll build a little booth just big enough for the toilet. It's probably going to be some sort of a compost setup with some venting. I'll take you over to the chinking here, because right now there's a really unique look at the chinking on the back side. If you're looking between the courses here, you'll see we have these hardwood blocks that we've placed between the courses, and that's to keep the gaps consistent. They're not going to shrink, they're not going to expand. It'll keep them nice and stable. You can just make out the back side of the chinking, and it's a little more lumpy on the inside. And that's because as we push the mortar through the metal lath, the mortar curled around and sort of grabbed on to the diamond mesh, and that'll help to reinforce it. So our next plan after sanding these logs is to spray foam between these courses with expanding insulation. And once that is done, then we can put some metal lath on the inside, then chink the inside, and that'll be that. You can see here that the logs are still pretty dark looking, and that's because they've still been darkened from the rain. We haven't sanded them yet, but they almost look green in some areas, like a green tinge. They're not very attractive at this point in time, but you'll probably remember what they looked like on the outside, which is basically exactly the same. They were dark, they were dingy, they were green, but once we've sanded them, it's really brightened them up. So once we do that on the inside of the cabin, it'll brighten it up as well. Still a lot to do, but I thought I would show you a before shot of what everything looks like before we get started, because it's going to be fun to come back in a few months when the interior is basically done, and to show a before and after shot. Okay, so here's the plan for today. The back of the cabin needs finishing, which involves trimming out the rear window and door. Plus, we'll need to close in the gable. After that, we'll come up with a design for the solar array. Finally, we'll head inside to begin sanding the logs. But before we begin, I'd like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Let's be honest, this has been a tough year on almost everyone, my family included, which is why it's nice to know that a service like BetterHelp exists. It's not a crisis line, and it's not a self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online from the comfort of your own home, which is of huge benefit, especially to those who wouldn't normally have access to a therapist by virtue of their location. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can start communicating within 48 hours. The service is available to clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get a timely response. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. BetterHelp is committed to getting you the help that you need. So if you find that a counselor isn't working for you, no problem. You can easily change counselors if needed. BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. So visit betterhelp.com/outsider. That's better, HELP, to take charge of your mental health with an experienced professional. And by using my link, you'll get 10% off your first month. Now let's get to work.
Good. Fit all the way around.
It's perfect, actually.
Good. That's the way it should go in.
After making sure the boards were a good fit, we took the top ones down and cut vents into them before putting them back up.
the ridge pole.
I'm heading down to the lower clearing to look at putting in a solar array for the cabin. So at the moment we have 4 solar panels that are 350 watts apiece, which will provide plenty of power for whatever we need. And the great thing about solar systems and solar setups is that as our need requires, we can easily add more panels and more batteries. So that's not an issue. Anyway, we are now in the lower clearing, or what we refer to as the lower clearing. It's about 75 feet in diameter. And if you look all around me, you can see that we are surrounded by trees that are 30 to 40 feet tall. So it does obstruct the sun for part of the day. Now, the reason why we're putting a solar array here is that this is the only clearing that is anywhere near the cabin. So what we're going to do is place the array at the most northern point of the clearing. And as you can see right now, it's bathed in sunlight. And that's because this is the part of the clearing that receives the most of it during the day and throughout the course of the year. So the array is going over there. The panels are pointing south at a 45-degree angle. And as well, to offset the height of these trees, we're going to be raising up the panels about 10 feet off the ground, just to give them a little bit more sun exposure as it arches over the tops of these trees to the south. My first task was to prep a spot for the array by cleaning up the brush at the edge of the clearing. With the spot cleared, I was ready to mill some lumber for the array's construction. So I grabbed some seasoned logs and brought them to the sawmill for processing. how we could build. This post does a little bit. That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, there you have it. We've got the first of 3 frames built for the solar array, and once all 3 of them are connected together, it's going to look like a big set of bleachers. But instead of having seats for people, we've got these ramps for the solar panels to mount to. I've got 4 solar panels at the moment, which are 5.5 feet tall by 3.5 feet wide. So we can mount all 4 solar panels up on the top ramps here, and that'll span about 14 feet. Now in the future, if I want to buy more solar panels, I can buy another 4 and put them on the bottom ramp and have them span across as well. So when all is said and done, and this solar array has been filled to capacity, I believe that means it will produce, or has the potential to produce, about 2.6 kilowatts of power, which is plenty of power for this cabin. Anyway, we built this frame today just to see how the dimensions and the design looks, and we're really happy with how it turned out. So we're going to go ahead with the solar array at a later date, but at the moment we're going to head inside the cabin to begin work on the interior. The fall weather is coming, the temperature is already beginning to cool off, which means we need to get this mortar done so that it has enough time to cure at the proper temperature, and that's just not going to happen if we leave it too late into the year when it's too cold to do. The first thing we need to do on the interior is sand the logs, just like we did on the outside, then insulate between the courses, followed by metal lath, and then the mortar. So there's still a few things to do, which is why we want to do it now before the colder weather hits. With that being said, let's go on inside and begin the work there. So as you can see, I've sanded most of the main floor now. Of course, there's a few spots that are left, and we still have to do that corner. And once the main floor is done, we'll be heading up into the loft, doing the rafters, the purlins, and the ridge log, but that's going to be for another day. Anyway, I'm sure you've noticed that there's been quite a contrast between what the logs looked like before they were sanded versus what they look like now. And since they've been fully seasoned and they're kept dry under this roof, they're no longer going to darken like they did before, but they're going to take on a nice golden hue. So it's going to look really nice and cozy and bright in here, especially once we've completed the chinking. We're one step closer to having a family Christmas at the cabin. Looks like I better get a move on though. The colder weather is already here, and Christmas isn't that far off. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, be well, and God bless.